Okay, just kind of go like this if you cannot, okay?
Okay.
Feeling like I'm a little crooked tonight too, but that's okay.
No, you shouldn't say crooked, actually.
Alrighty, so I would like to call to order the Novi Board of Education regular meeting. Tonight is January 7th, 2021. We are still meeting virtual until further notice. I'd like to welcome everybody and wish you a happy new year. If I can get a roll call vote, Mr. Mena, that would be great.
Trustee Cook?
Here.
Trustee Hood?
Here.
Trustee Mena? Here. Trustee Roney?
Here.
Trustee Ruskin?
Here.
Trustee Smith?
Here.
And Trustee Murphy, absent excused?
Yes. Okay, if we can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I can get an approval of tonight's agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mrs. Roney. We can get a roll call, Mr. Mena?
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Hood?
Yes.
Trustee Mena? Yes. Trustee Roney?
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin? And I'll take that as a yes. And
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 6-0. Next, we have the National School Board Month Resolution. Dr. Matthews.
You're muted.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. Whereas Michigan is home to more than 600 Board of Educations that work to enrich the lives of Michigan students through education and directly influencing instruction in Michigan's public schools. And whereas Article 8, Section 2 of the Michigan Constitution of 1963 states that providing for the education of Michigan's children is a fundamental duty of state government. And whereas local school board members represent their community to ensure that educational opportunities are provided to the children and young adults in their community that will advance student achievement in schools and communities in which they serve. And whereas during this month, we join the Michigan Association of School Boards, the Michigan Department of Education, local school districts, and community organizations to recognize and raise awareness of the countless efforts and contributions of local school boards and school board members throughout Michigan. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that we, the Novi Community School District, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2021 as Local School Board Month and honor the contribution of Novi Community School District school board members. Danielle Ruskin, Tom Smith, Willie Mena, Kathy Hood, Paul Cook, Bobby Murphy, and Mary Ann Roney. And we would like to extend our appreciation to all of you for all of the things that you do to help our school district be successful.
We prefer the cookies.
One day you will get cookies.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matthews. We all are honored to serve. And so next we have our oath of office, and I will turn that back over to Dr. Matthews again.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. We received from the Board of County Canvassers for the County of Oakland the certificate of determination of the election results of the Novi Community School District. The official document states that it has been determined that at the regular election held on November 3rd, 2020, Danielle R. Ruskin, Paul Cook, and Willie Mena were elected to 6-year terms of office expiring on December 31st, 2026. The revised school code provides within 10 business days after notification of election or appointment to the board, each person shall file with the secretary of the board an acceptance of the office to which the person has been elected or appointed. Prior to the member elect performing the duties of office, the oath of office must be administered within 10 days after they have been notified of election results. This activity has been completed for all three individuals. So tonight it is recommended that the oath of office be administered to newly elected board members, and we would ask each of the elected board members to ceremoniously read the oath tonight as public recognition of their election. Daniel Ruskin, Willie Minna, and Paul Cook. And the oath is presented there for each of you. And so we would ask each of you individually to read that. And if you will allow me, Dr. Ruskin, I would ask you to go first, then Mr. Minna, and then Mr. Cook.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Matthews. I will
Yes.
begin. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Novi Community School District, Michigan, according to the best of my ability.
Mr. Minna?
Yes, I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of the Novi Community School District, Michigan, according to the best of my ability.
Thank you. And Mr. Cook?
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Novi Community School District, Michigan, according to the best of my abilities.
Thank you, and welcome once again to the Board of Education, and I look forward to serving with you for the next 6 years.
Dr. Matthews, we appreciate you. And next, we are going to move on to our election of officers. The Board of Education elects officers annually, not earlier than January 1st, immediately following an election held on a November regular election date, and not later than the first meeting in January. At a board work session held on Thursday, December 18th, all board members discussed the board committees and officer positions. And then we have a recommendation, and per policy in our procedures, each individual office needs to be a separate recommendation with support and a vote. So if someone would like to make the recommendation for the first office, I'll open the floor. Mrs. Hood?
Yeah, I recommend that we, I guess it's nominate Dr. Daniel Ruskin for the position of president on our board.
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Hood and supported by
Mr. Minna.
Mr. Mena. Any discussion before we take the vote? Okay, seeing none. If we can get a roll call vote, Mr. Mena?
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
Trustee Hood.
Yes.
Trustee Minna. Yes. Trustee Roney.
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin.
Yes.
And Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 6-0. Motion carries 6-0. Next, we will get a recommendation for the office of the vice president. Mr. Mena?
I would like to nominate Mr. Paul Cook for the position of vice president.
I'll support.
Recommended by Mr. Mena and supported by Mrs. Roney. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will go ahead and get a roll call vote. Mr. Mena?
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
Trustee Hood.
Yes.
Trustee Minna. Yes. Trustee Roney.
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin.
Yes.
And Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Next, we will move on to the recommendation for the office for secretary. Mr. Cook?
I move that we nominate Mr. Mena as the Secretary of Novi Board of Education.
I'll support.
Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mrs. Roney. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're ready for another roll call vote. Mr. Mena?
Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
To 0. And our final office position that we need a recommendation for is the treasurer. If I can get a recommendation? Mr. Cook?
I recommend that we nominate Mrs. Hood as the treasurer of the Novi Community School District Board of Education.
Support.
Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Mena. Any discussion? Seeing none, I think we're ready for our final roll call vote for the officers. Mr. Mena?
Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
and Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Okay. So we are completed with that. I just want to thank all of our board members for serving, whether it be in an officer position or a trustee position. We are all equal and equally important in our voices. Next, we will go through and do the board committee appointments. The board president may identify board members or board members may express an interest for committee appointments or representation as board liaisons. Board committee opportunities include the NEF liaison, the Community Education ISD liaison, the OCSBA Government Relations Committee liaison, standing committees, which is Finance, Board Governance and Policy, Legislative Committee, and we have 2 ad hoc committees, the Capital Projects Committee and Curriculum. I will quickly read through the assignments for the upcoming 2020-21 school year. Our liaisons for community education is Mrs. Roney, NEF is Mr. Smith, OCSBA Government Relations is Mrs. Hood. We have our standing committees, which is Board Governance and Policy, being chaired by Mr. Cook. Mr. Smith and myself will serve on that committee. For finance, that will be chaired by our treasurer, Mrs. Hood, and Mrs. Murphy and Mrs. Roney will continue on the finance committee. Legislative, we have Mrs. Murphy as the chair. Mrs. Hood and Mrs. Roney will serve in that capacity. For our ad hoc committees, we have capital projects. Mr. Mena will continue as the chair. Mr. Cook and myself will remain on the committee alongside him. For curriculum, we have Mrs. Roney as the chair, and Mr. Mena and Mr. Smith will serve in that capacity. I believe we probably need a recommendation to support and vote on that.
Do we? I don't think historically we've done that. I think that's a president decision.
Yeah, historically, it's been the president assignment for the committee members. So
Sounds good. Decision made. We will move on to our 2021 board meeting schedule, and I will turn it over to Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. And a tentative 2021 Board of Education meeting schedule is presented tonight for review and discussion, with these meetings being held at the Educational Services Building, hopefully, or via Zoom. The tentative schedule includes proposed dates for the Board of Education workshops as well. And so we would ask that the board would approve this calendar this evening. And you can see that we have highlighted in is that aqua or turquoise, the workshop sessions. One will be next week, January 14th. One would be April 29th. One will be August 12th, and one will be October 14th. You will also note that there is a tentative potential date in June, either the 10th or the 18th for the career prep graduation. So once we nail that down, we will come back to the board and identify specifically which date that will be. So we would ask the board this evening to approve this 2021, which is the calendar year, Board of Education meetings as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. If I can get a recommendation, Mrs. Hood, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I move that the Board of Education approve the 2021 Board of Education meeting calendar as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Cook. Any questions or discussion on this?
Just so the board knows, we have looked at the calendar as it relates to things like Taste Fest in the fall, homecoming, spring break. And so we believe we have handled all of those potential conflicts. And so we would appreciate the board approving this calendar this evening so we can publish.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, or Mr. Cook, yes, please.
Yeah, but if something arises throughout the year, we have the flexibility to postpone a meeting or change a meeting, right? Correct? Or call a special meeting, so.
Correct, that is correct. There are some Open Meetings Act regulations that we would need to follow as far as posting the meeting to make sure it is public. But yes, the board certainly has that authority.
Seeing no other questions or discussion, I think, Mr. Mena, we are ready for another roll call vote.
Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
and Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to our next item of operations, we have the FOIA, FERPA, and OMA discussion. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. School board members are responsible for ensuring that they are knowledgeable of three important governmental and educational laws and guidelines. These are the Freedom of Information Act, commonly referred to as FOIA, the Family Educational Rights to Privacy Act, commonly referred to as FERPA, and the Open Meetings Act, which is commonly shortened to OMA. This board has had presentations on these topics at previous meetings. Tonight, that information is provided to the board as a review for our responsibilities in that area. And there is no action that is needed on this. We just wanted to make sure that our community and also the board had this information so that you could review it so that we continue to operate with these governmental laws and regulations in mind.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews, and thank you for the review and the information for the board. In the past, we've read the Code of Ethics, and after discussing, since there really hasn't been a changing of the board this year, it will be included. Mrs. Holly will send that out to the board just as a reminder. So we will move on to our first opportunity for comments from the audience related to agenda items. Again, we are doing our meeting via Zoom, so there is a Google document form that public comment could be made and shared with us for Dr. Matthews to read to the board. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. Tonight we have two comments from the community. The first is from Kristen Hoy. Happy New Year, Novi Community School District Board of Education and Administration. I have two hybrid high school students and wish to thank you for maintaining the 2 days per week in-person instruction for the near term versus having 5 in-person days. I feel social distancing, when considered with contact tracing, has significantly helped our buildings stay open, especially at the middle and high school levels. Quarantining one teacher may impact over 100 students. That begs the next question: when to return to school full-time in person? I definitely agree with using the NCSD metrics and that we should consider using more than one measure. However, I'm not on board with using Oakland County data. Dr. Matthews explained the epidemiologist recommended against using Oakland County data because it is not representative of our community. County data tends to be worse than NCSD data. Please consider using weighted metrics in which NCSD measures are considered more heavily than county measures. Assuming hybrid does progress to 5-day in-person instruction, if the pandemic worsens, what are the metrics for perhaps returning back to 2-day in-person instruction? Finally, near the end of 2020, Dr. Matthews began issuing email updates every Wednesday and Friday. Will these continue to be sent in 2021? If the current plan is no, I urge you to reconsider. I found these emails helpful to gain insight and understanding regarding the district's thoughts and considerations behind various decisions being made. Thank you for all that you do. And the second comment is from Joy Reeder. Livonia Public Schools are returning to full-time in-person 5 days a week, beginning next week for elementary and the following week for middle and high school. Just wondering if Novi will be considering this also, as in-person 5 days would be very beneficial for my son right now. And those are the two comments that we have this evening, Dr. Ruskin.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews, and thank you to the public for always sharing your viewpoints. We appreciate hearing from you. We'll move on to the consent agenda items. We have two different votes tonight. So we have consent agenda A items, which are minutes from the regular meeting, December 17th, and also minutes from the work session, which occurred also on December 17th, 2020. If I can get a recommendation. Mr. Cook?
I recommend that we, the Novi Community School Board of Education approve consent items as presented.
I'll support.
Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mrs. Roney. We can get a roll call vote, Mr. Mena?
Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
and Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Next, we have the second consent agenda item, which is consent agenda item B. It is the designate depositories and personnel. It is included in your agenda. So if we can get a recommendation. Mr. Cook?
I recommend that the Novi Community School Board of Education accept consent agenda B, items A through H as presented.
Support.
I support.
Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mrs. Hood. Can we get a roll call vote, Mr. Mena?
Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
and Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Recommendation carries 6-0. We will move on to our action items. We have two action items this evening. Our first one being the personnel report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin, and I will turn to Dr. Kinzer for the brief personnel report this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. It is brief. One item, a retirement, Mary Ann Check, kindergarten teacher at Novi Woods, effective February 18th, 2021.
Mena? If I can get a recommendation.
Okay. I move that the board adopt the personnel recommendations as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mr. Mena and supported by Mr. Cook. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. Mr. Mena, if we can get a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
and Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Our second action item tonight is the bid package number 2024 Novi High School Secure Entry Editions. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. On Thursday, November 24th, 2020, sealed bids were received and publicly opened for the Novi Middle School. Actually, I think this is Novi High School additions and remodeling. In attendance for the bid opening were representatives from Novi Community School District, Plant Moran Cressa, TMP Architecture, McCarthy Smith, and interested bidders. Bids were opened, recorded, and tabulated through a Zoom meeting. The project team conducted post-bid interviews with each of the following qualified bidders for each bid division of work. During the post-bid interview, the project team reviewed the scope of work, project schedule, manpower requirements, and specified materials with each of the contractors based upon the team's review of the proposals and bidders. And we propose the following recommendations for contract award. And you will see the number of contracts that are being recommended this evening. The total award recommendation is $3,738,777. And so we would ask that the Board of Education approve the contract awards as recommended, and that we would move forward. We do have Bill McCarthy and Agnes Arbuckle from McCarthy and Smith here this evening. Agnes is our program manager in the district, and Mr. McCarthy is head of all that is important at McCarthy and Smith. And so we are pleased to have them here. If you do have additional questions, I received none from, this was presented to the board back in December. I've received no questions since then, but we thought it would be good to have Ms. Arbuckle and Mr. McCarthy here this evening in case you did have additional questions before you voted on this.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews, and thank you to our guests who are always here eager to help us out as we surely need it at times. So if I can get a recommendation, please. Mrs. Roney?
Yeah, I'll recommend that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve the contract awards as recommended above in the amount of $3,738,777.
Support.
By Mrs. Roney and supported by Mr. Cook. Any questions or comments? Mr. Cook first, and then Mr. Mena. I saw your yellow rectangle around you.
Oh, I just on Division 107, the steel. We had to go down a ways because of incomplete bids, and just curious on the second low bid had not completed a project of this scope. Had they completed any projects anywhere near this scope, or was it just way out of their realm?
I was totally out of their league, I guess I would say. Not even remotely comparable. So,
Okay.
Yeah, it was nothing to even compare it to. We've asked for documentation of previous projects, pictures, proof of previous work, all the way down to types of welds. And
we had just completed a project with limited success on something that was kind of not nearly as technical as this would be.
With that same supplier?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we had the same opinion from also our TMP team, which is the architecture firm.
Okay. I won't let you go without answering at least one question, Agnes.
Sorry. This is the good stuff, the fun stuff.
Okay.
Cook,
Thank you.
Mr. Mena?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say kudos. I don't know who it is in your organization that does the renderings, the actual close to real render. Who is it that puts that together?
That is not us. That's TMP Architectures.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yes.
Well, kudos to them, because I got to tell you, if what we're doing comes out half as nice as these renderings, I think we're going to be very, very happy with the work that's being done. So I'm very excited to get this project started. Yeah.
I'll let them know. Thank you very much.
I hope that our students dress half as nice as these students in the drawings. I mean, I was quite impressed with the accessories and all it was great.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I mean, pictures, 1,000 words, as they say, but it is very easy to depict and show people, I guess, where we're trying to get to. Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate the renderings being included. I know that we had asked for that in the past, and I think it's so important because it's exciting to visually see where we're headed. So I encourage people who are watching this meeting now or watch the recorded version to go on to Board Books and look at those renderings because it's quite exciting, and we're very pleased with the work that we've received so far.
Yeah,
So-
it even looks like they got Dr. Weber walking into the office with his phone to his ear and in his suit. So in one of the renderings. So.
All righty. So if we don't have any further discussion, I think that we are ready for a roll call vote on this, Mr. Mena. You are on mute.
I was looking for the unmute button, asking if I was on mute. So, okay. Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
and Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Such an agreeable group today.
Motion carries 6-0. Next, we are going to move on to information and discussion. We have 2 items on there. So we will start with the professional auditing services. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. On November 12, 2020, we received a proposal for a contract extension with Plant Moran. The agreement is to provide external independent auditing services, beginning with an audit of the financial statements for fiscal years ending June 30th, 2021, 2022, and 2023. The estimate fee for service for basic financial statement and federal program audits is $46,250 per year, which represents a 4% increase and will remain fixed for the duration of the extension. Their current contract expired at the conclusion of the June 30th, 2020 audit. Plant Moran has performed auditing services for the district since 2012. It is recommended that Plant Moran be awarded a 3-year extension for professional auditing services. Plant Moran is a regional accounting firm headquartered in Southfield, Michigan, with a total of 21 U.S. offices. They serve over 200 school districts, more than any other CPA firm in Michigan. Clients include 13 of the 15 largest school districts in Michigan. 150 staff members receive specialized school district training. They receive a pass rating on most recent peer review, and they are affiliated with MSBO, which is the Michigan School Business Official, ASBO, which is the American School Business Official, MICPA, MASB, which is the School Board Association, MASA, which is the Superintendent's Association, and the Michigan Department of Education. This comes before the board tonight for information and discussion. It will come back to the board on June 20, in 2 weeks, with a recommendation for professional audit services be awarded to Plant Moran in the amount of $46,250 annually for fiscal years ending June 30, 2021, 22, and 23. Mr. McIntyre is here this evening. He brought this recommendation to me and to the board. And so if you have additional questions, you can either ask them this evening, or you can certainly reach out to Mr. McIntyre in the next 2 weeks before this comes back before the board on June 21st for you to vote on this extension of the Plant Moran contract for auditing services.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews, and thank you to Mr. McIntyre. Does any board members have any burning questions right at the moment? Mr. Cook?
I have a simple one. Mr. McIntyre, have you dealt with Plant Moran other than this year? I know we have in the, since for the last 8 years, but have you dealt with them in your previous positions?
I have. At Western Union, they were the incumbent auditor at the time. So yes, I have some familiarity with them.
And you're very happy with what they did there? Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Any other questions or discussion points? Okay, seeing none, as Dr. Matthews said, as things come up, if you have any questions prior to the vote on January 21st, please feel free to send to Dr. Matthews and Mr. McIntyre. We will now move to our second information and discussion piece, which is COVID metrics to measure learning modalities. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. Returning students to school 5 days a week is a common goal of our Novi Community School District parents, Board of Education, teachers, and administrators. In order to do so, the conditions in our schools and communities need to be safe. Over the past several months, we have examined this issue from a number of perspectives. I would like to provide another way to examine this issue this evening. On August 6th, when the Board of Education approved our return to school plan, the COVID-19 statistics in Oakland County looked like this. The 7-day case average per million residents in Oakland County was 101. The cases per 10,000 residents in zip code 48374 was 10.9. Cases per 10,000 residents in zip code 48375 was 18.9. Cases per 10,000 residents in zip code 48377 was 15.4. And the cases per 10,000 residents in the Novi Community School District was 4.3. And the percentage of reported positive tests in Oakland County over the last 7 days was 5.35%. On September 8th, our first day of school, the COVID-19 statistics in Oakland County look like this. 7-day case average per million residents was 75. Cases per 10,000 residents in 48374 was 22.5. And 48375 was 13.6. And 48377 was 22.7. And the cases per 10,000 residents in our school district boundaries was 8.8. And the percentage of reported positive tests over the last 7 days was 5.65%. 4 weeks into the school year, October 6th, the COVID-19 statistics in Oakland County were the 7-day case average was 74. The cases per 10,000 residents in 48374 was 16.7. 48375 was 19.3. 48377 was 21.5. Cases per 10,000 residents in our school district was 4.9. And the percentage of reported positive tests was 3.27%. 8 weeks into the school year, November 3rd, the 7-day case average was 361. The cases per 10,000 residents was 32.1 in 48374, 48375. It was also 32.1, 48377 was 51.6. And in our school district, cases per 10,000 residents was 28.6. And the positive test rate was 10.02%. 12 weeks into the school year on December 1st, the COVID statistics in our county look like this. The 7-day case average was 716. The cases per 10,000 residents in 48374 was 111.6. 48375 was 95.3. 48377 was 153.0. Cases per 10,000 residents in our school district was 61.7. And the positive test rate was 12.16%. The last day of school in December, December 18th, the statistics were 7-day case average was 380. The cases per 10,000 residents in 48374 was 93. 48375 was 111.5. 48377 was 150.5. And cases per 10,000 residents in our school district boundaries was 48.3. And the percentage of reported positive tests in Oakland County for the 7-day average was 7.83%. On our return to school on January 4th, the COVID-19 statistics were 7-day case average was 300. The cases per 10,000 residents in 48374 was 62.2. 48375 was 53.1. 48377 was 91.6. And in our school district boundaries, it was 35.5. And the reported positive test rate was 6.09%. These numbers show a steady rise over the course through December, and then a slow trend downward into January. As of January 7th, the numbers in our district are higher than when we made the decision to go hybrid and virtual in August and September. Over the course of the school year, we have kept track of positive cases reported in the district by week. A summary of those numbers through January 4th shows the following. There are 48 total positive cases as of January 4th. 28 were students and 20 were staff members. In our district, we started school on September 8th with 2 options for students, virtual and hybrid. Roughly 55% of our students opted for virtual learning and 45% opted for in-person hybrid learning. Our district has provided a consistent learning environment since September 8th. We have offered hybrid in-person or a virtual option every day since September 8th. Other districts surrounding us and throughout the state have jumped back and forth between in-person and virtual learning. One of the keys to effective learning is consistency. That is why we stress attendance and why teachers craft learning routines. In our district, even in the midst of a pandemic, we have offered a consistent weekly schedule since September 8th. There were 2 disruptions this fall. First, at the high school in early September, we had to close the in-person hybrid option for 2 days when we had 9 students test positive and were not able to conclude our contact tracing. The second event was in November when the governor closed high schools for in-person instruction for several weeks. In both cases, our high school students were transitioned to a virtual environment. The question that we are now struggling with is how do we move back to a more quote-unquote regular school environment? In December, the board approved a recommendation that extended our current approach to January 22nd, the end of first semester. Parents were asked to commit to either the virtual or hybrid in-person options for second semester starting January 25th. Parents who wanted to switch either from virtual to hybrid or hybrid to virtual were asked to complete a survey. Those who did not want to change did not complete the survey. In the survey, parents were told that the choice made would last for the entire second semester. Additionally, those who kept or selected the hybrid in-person were told that it might be possible to transition back to 5-day per week in person if the COVID-19 numbers substantially improve. The question for this board is, will it be possible to transition our hybrid students back to 5-day per week in-person classes during second semester? The numbers, while greatly improved from the peak in November and December, are still well above where we started when we made the decision to go virtual and in-person hybrid in August and when we started school in September. No specific guidance has been provided by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, the Governor's Office, or the Oakland County Health Division. An epidemiologist for the Oakland County Health Division in a phone call suggested that the best indicator is local data, the cases per school district. However, basing this decision on one data point does not seem appropriate. Additionally, we are just now 1 week removed from New Year's Eve and our holiday break. We are unsure if numbers will rise again due to travel or small group gatherings. Michigan State University's Education Policy Innovation Collaborative study, To What Extent Does In-Person Schooling Contribute to the Spread of COVID-19, states, the important exception is that we do find some evidence that in-person modality is associated with increased COVID spread in communities with relatively high pre-existing levels of COVID. In Michigan, for instance, districts offering an in-person instructional modality show increased COVID spread for daily average case counts over 21 cases per 100,000. This is about 95th percentile of the pre-existing case count distribution in our data. There is no significant evidence that school systems offering hybrid instruction increase COVID spread. The Oakland County Health Division provides numbers in units of cases per million and cases per 10,000. 21 cases per 100,000 would be 210 cases per million and 2.1 cases per 10,000. The Oakland County Health Division guidance on in-person instruction document identifies 2 county level indicators, cases per million and positivity rate. Their recommended numbers per million cases are significantly more conservative than this study by MSU's EPIC study. And those numbers are presented there from low risk through level E. Given what we know at this time, I would recommend the following. We make no decision based on numbers today as we wait to see if there will be a surge following the holidays. It is 1 week since New Year's Eve today, and so we could, the surge typically happens within 7 to 14 days, they indicate. That we focus on 3 indicators, cases per million in the county, cases in our 3 zip code areas of the Novi Community School District. This, in essence, is our neighborhood pod. And cases per 10,000 in the Novi Community School District. Recommended levels to return to 5-day per week in-person instruction would be A, 150 cases per million in the county, for 3 consecutive weeks. 20 cases per 10,000 in the 3 zip code areas of the Novi Community School District for 3 consecutive weeks. And 20 cases per 10,000 in the Novi Community School District for 3 consecutive reporting periods. There is no right answer. We must use our collective best judgment to create conditions where students can learn and where they are safe. I would ask the board to continue to consider these options and make a decision on January 21st on the direction that we should move the second semester begins, so that we can identify the target, and then that our parents and students would know and could anticipate when we would hit those targets and make plans to return our hybrid students to 5 days of in-person instruction. Dr. Ruskin.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. So I will open this up for discussion. If anyone has any specific questions on these, I would call them recommendations, even though they're not a formal recommendation, but on these, this kind of cumulative information and this new information and these guidelines that are being presented to us. Mr. Cook?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first on this. I looked at all the data that we've been provided over time and everything, and looked at these three particular data sets and tried to do a little bit of trend analysis to see when we might be going back. The neat part is if we go with these levels, we would be going back pretty soon, but that's still on most of these 5 times higher than what they were when we decided to go hybrid to begin with. You know, it's the first one in particular, 150 cases per million in the county. That's risk level E, which, you know, in December we said we would go back when we hit level B, which is between 20 and 40. You know, so that's, you know, I'm kind of surprised to see that number in there. Like one of the community members commented that, you know, the county data is skewed towards the higher population areas and of Pontiac and the northern part of the community. It'd be nice to have things more local, which I think the other two do, you know, the district definitely. And then the three districts around, they handle, you know, our kind of bubble, because we don't all just stay within the school district. We travel around to these neighboring areas and neighboring zip codes all the time. So, you know, having those two in there, I agree with. A couple different ways that we could weight the local stuff higher than the county stuff is making those numbers much smaller. Cases per 10,000, you know, a 2.1 change is, you know, quite a big change in the cases per million. So, you know, if it's you know, 210 at that case. The other thing is I've seen where out of state, you know, governors are recommending a number that would be down close to the 2.5, you know, 3 per 10,000 in school districts. I like the 3. I would like to weight them and make the locals a little bit better, a little bit heavier weighted than the county. You know, I think the big debate would be where those numbers are, and then, you know, we would also have to pick a high end, because once we hit those numbers and then all of a sudden we start climbing again, we'll have to figure out when we reverse directions. So I'm open to discuss my opinions with anybody that would like to. And I've talked to Dr. Matthews a number of times on this, and he's probably sick of hearing me talk about data on this. So, but you know, these 3, I like these 3 better than going with just one, and I would like to weight them, you know, so that the local stuff is weighted much heavier than the county.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Mrs. Hood?
Yeah, just, I don't have anything to argue about with what Mr. Cook just said. I have a kind of a different question, and I have not read the details. Dr. Matthews, can you tell us the status of teachers being vaccinated in Michigan?
Yes, I can. I've talked to Oakland County Health Department multiple times. I've had 3 conversations with them this week, and this is what I've been told. They have received, and the Oakland County Health Division has received 5,850 doses of vaccine. They received those in 3 separate groupings of 1,950 doses per grouping, for a total of 5,850 doses. Their plan is to focus on at-risk populations, which are those 65 and older, especially in kind of group facilities, and also on medical personnel and EMS workers. They did yesterday put out an appointment calendar for educators, those who work in school districts, to sign up for 2 doses. And we have shared that. We shared that with our district staff last evening. But what they discovered, which is what I knew, is that there's a very limited amount of space available for educators to be vaccinated at this point. We were told today, when I spoke with the Oakland County Health Department, that they are expecting their weekly vaccine doses to increase significantly in the next month. But as of now, they've only received 5,850 doses. And for perspective, there are over 13,000 educators in Oakland County alone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hood. Any other questions? Mr. Mena, please.
Yep. So Dr. Matthews, last time we talked, I think there was another indicator that we were considering, the percentage of reported positive cases. I guess I missed it in your dialogue on why we decided to drop that as an indicator to be used.
Yeah. When I spoke with the epidemiologist at Oakland County Health Division, she said that's a fairly volatile measure, especially as we move into a phase where the only people being tested are those that we believe would report a positive outcome. And so the percentage of positive cases or positive tests would increase rather dramatically, but it may not be indicative of an increase in the overall number of people becoming sick. And so she recommended against using the percentage of positive tests.
I guess if the amount of testing is flat, if it's not bouncing up and down, then that would make sense. But it's so hard to really know what's going on when you're just looking at case counts if you don't know whether or not numbers are going up because more folks are getting COVID or because more folks are simply being tested. So I agree. There really isn't a good answer. I got that. I even at the way these numbers, these metrics that you're recommending, I mean, I don't have a magic ball, but I'm not confident that we're going to be going to school full time anytime soon, even with these metrics.
You know, and I'm collecting, and I will share with the board tomorrow information from as many county school districts as I can, and you will undoubtedly see that many of them are planning to go back either 4 days a week, have their elementary students come back and their middle and high school students do a hybrid format, but what you will see. What you need to keep in mind is that when you see that, that also happened this fall. when many of the school districts started in one format, returned students to school, then had to bounce out of that because they had many positive cases crop up in school, and so the most positive part of our plan in our district has been that even when a positive case pops up in a classroom, for the most part, we have not had to shut down a classroom or a school building because we have been able to social distance and wear a mask and those kinds of things. I was at the high school today, for example, during lunch, and 2 to 3 students are sitting at a table. Last year at this time, when I walked into the high school, there were 8 to 10 students at a lunch table. And so, we have taken some significant measures to ensure that we keep our students safe. And those measures have allowed us to have consistent educational opportunities for our students this fall. And I know that there is a lot of desire for us to have our students back 5 days a week. And all of us want that. But having said that, my fear would be if we jump in too soon, that we would have to pull back, and that is not good for the education of our students.
If I can just continue one more, we were talking about vaccines earlier. If magically all of our teachers could get vaccinated tomorrow, would that have any effect on your recommendations for indicators or how you feel our direction would be there?
I think that would do a couple of things. One is it would give our teachers confidence that they, even in a full setting, would have some protection. The second piece of that, though, is that even with a vaccination, they are suggesting, that people who have vaccinations continue some of the safety measures that are in place, wearing masks, for example, hand washing, social distancing as much as possible. And so, even though we would have the vaccination, and I think it would give a level of confidence that some of our staff don't have currently, then it would create classrooms that perhaps could be larger. It's not a magic bullet. It's not going to magically create a situation where everybody can come back both virtual and hybrid. But I think it would help us move in that direction.
Thank you, Mr. Benna, and thank you, Dr. Matthews. I have 2 quick comments or questions. So when I first looked at these numbers, I think, my first inclination was the 150 cases per million for the county, kind of just caught my eye and alarmed me a little bit. But then I took a step back and read through all of the information and thought through what the epidemiologist said and thought through some of the conversations we've had about Oakland County being such a large, diverse area and trying to keep it local. And so, although that number, we find ourselves in the level E, we are talking about Oakland County, which is a large mile radius, and can be up to an hour away, if you will. So I feel pretty comfortable with that, thinking through it and not just going with my gut instinct. I do have 2 questions on B and C. So it says 20 cases per 10,000, and I see where you got that number based on some information you received and the policy improvement collaborative from MSU. I'm just wondering, will that be every single zip code needs to be in 20, or is there a potential for an average? Because if we look at the charts and we look at August 6th, all of them were under 20. But then when we jump to September 8th, one was 13.6 and one was 22. The other was 22. And then the following 4 weeks into school, we're at 16, 19, and 21. which I think if we were doing more of an average, we would have more of a chance to meet those metrics and to get our kiddos back in the classroom versus just saying, oops, we never met 20 in all three, when indeed potentially in one zip code there may be a senior home, or there may have been an outbreak in a restaurant or something that really isn't indicative of what's happening in our classrooms.
I would, what I can do between now and information that I provide you probably wouldn't be tomorrow, but next week would be to look at those averages over time, you know, and what would be an average of those 3 zip code areas each week as we move forward, you know, from September or August even through today. And you know, I think an average might be a good way to approach that, as opposed to saying they have to be 20 or under in each of the areas, because as you indicate, you could be over by 1 or 2 in one of the zip code areas and well under in the other zip code areas. And so, you know, again, you know, what is the magic number 20? I don't know, but I can certainly provide you with kind of what that looked like over time to help you as we look to try to make a decision on January 21st.
Great. Yeah, and just to that point again, I think that if we look at November 3rd, you know, then we were well above 20, so we wouldn't be in a position where we were taking too much risk by doing average. I mean, it was very clear at that point that we were in 32 and 51, and there we wouldn't have even been close to 20.
Right.
So
Yeah, you know, some of the averages or the individual zip codes, for the most part, are relatively within the same range. It typically is not wildly divergent. There are certain times over the course of the past several months where one zip code area was wildly higher than others, but for the most part, they kind of stay within range. And so I think an average might be an appropriate way to look at that. So I will get that information to the board.
okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Cook?
Yeah, if everybody else is gone. Has there been any consideration of looking at it for our different groups? So K4 different than the high schoolers or anything like that, and potentially bringing them back a little bit quicker. You know, it'd have to be broken up that way based off of the teachers and support staff and stuff. But
Right.
have we considered any of that as we're looking at this?
We have considered that, and we have you know, asked the board to give us that authority to make decisions based on level, as opposed to just making a blanket decision across the district. And you will see in the information that I provide you tomorrow that many districts are kind of moving that direction. That the younger students, they typically are bringing back full time or 4 days a week, as opposed to and not doing any of the hybrid kinds of things. Although there is a range, I want you to know there is a range across the county of what districts are doing, but I would think that we could look at potentially that. You know, the one wild card that we have to be aware of is that new variant that they've identified. They say it's more highly contagious. It really hasn't made its way into Michigan that we know of, but that's why we track these numbers every day, and that's why we track these numbers every week. And so I think that we can stay on top of that, even if we were to bring back students 5 days a week, to make sure that they would be safe. And it's important to note that if and when we do bring our students back 5 days a week, you know, masks I think would still be required in the classroom. That we would have hand sanitizer continue to be available. We would have our wipes continue to be available. You know, as I said, I was at the high school today, and I am just so proud of our students and our staff in that compliance with masks and hand sanitizer and the use of wipes is so high in our district. We have not had any issues that I have heard from some other superintendents across the county and state about compliance in those areas. And it just makes me very proud of our community and the way that we are trying to make sure that we are safe so that we can have education in Novi.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews and Mr. Cook. Piggybacking on Mr. Cook, I know, Dr. Matthews, we do get that Oakland County Health Department report on a regular basis, and I know that they break it down by age at the bottom of the report. So potentially, if that's something that you and your team would like to look at or could consider looking at and making, I certainly don't want to back us into a corner by making it a metric, but using that kind of as a reference of, you know, if that age group, that's K4 versus the age group that potentially puts us in middle or high school, is very variable and different for a 3 consecutive week period, that could help with any recommendations to potentially get the younger group back into school sooner.
And Ms. Holly and I can certainly review all of those Oakland County Health Division reports that we've received and look at those by age group. And you know, the numbers are lower at the elementary age, you know, the 5 through 9, and then the kind of the middle grades, and then the high school age. And so we can certainly provide that information to the board.
Thank you. Any other?
So we will continue to bring this back to the board. You know, the goal really is for us to try to identify what the targets are on January 21st, so that we can communicate to our community, this is where we're headed, because it really is a goal to get our students back 5 days a week. You know, some have argued, you know, why, for example, are the high school athletic teams that are still playing in their fall sports able to test? And the answer is that is something that came from the state. Funding for that. You know, we continue to advocate for some of that. But again, even testing is not a silver bullet, because you could test on Monday, and if you don't test again until Thursday, you know, you may be exposed and get positive and expose other people. And so, you know, as we've gone through this process, there is no one thing that is going to keep us safe all the time. What we have to try to figure out is how do we manage this in the most successful way. And the one thing I can definitely say is that we have managed this very well over the course of the school year from September 8th, because our students have had a consistent learning environment since September 8th.
You know, and Dr. Matthews, I think the piece on the social distancing and the hand washing, a very concrete example of that would be, as I tested positive and suffered the impacts of COVID in the month of December. 6 of my colleagues that I was with, but fortunately we wear masks at the ESB and do our best to engage in social distancing, all came up negative in their testing. So on that same transfer of adult or children, that concept of social distancing, the only evidence we need, and I just want to reiterate this, on the effectiveness, is we've had a 2-day disruption that was from Oakland County, and that's it, since September 8th. You know, beyond the mandatory shutdown from the governor, we have executed in this district the opportunity for families to have their children get an in-person education if they so choose.
And I would also like to reinforce that Dr. Weber is very lucky that nobody else on his staff tested positive, or he would be a dead man.
Nice. Threats on the board meeting. Okay.
Sheila, make sure that's in the notes.
Any questions or more? I mean, obviously, please continue to forward your comments, concerns, suggestions, you know, any collaborative work that we can do together to move in the direction of reaching our goal. Okay, seeing none, seeing no yellow boxes, I think we'll move on to our next portion of the agenda, which is the committee report. We had a capital projects committee meeting, and Mr. Mena, as our chair, if you'd like to give a report, that'd be greatly appreciated.
We did. We had a very nice, robust meeting, although the number of topics we discussed wasn't large, so my report isn't long. The discussion was mostly around the plans for moving forward with the Walsh College building. You know, as everybody knows, we've had some time to kind of kick the tires, and it looks like so far everything is going well, and I think we expect to get a presentation before the board soon to discuss, board decision on moving forward there.
Thank you, Mr. Mena. And I'm sure all the board members look forward to that presentation and getting more detail. So that's great. Next, we have our second opportunity for comments from the audience. Again, we have a Google document opportunity. Is there any comments from the audience, Dr. Matthews?
Yes, Dr. Ruskin, there are two additional comments that I would like to read. One is from Kelly Kikish, and her comment is, I'm wondering if there has been any progress with DEI initiatives, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And the second is from Adrian Haslam, and she says, good evening and Happy New Year to the Novi Schools Administration and Board of Education. As we consider the potential for this shiny new year, I would like to show my support for the district's continued commitment toward diversity, equity, and inclusion. I was proud to hear of all the teachers who proposed and received grants to create more inclusive classrooms and programming that gives space to hear and learn from diverse voices. I understand some of the staff have formed a DEI committee and that the district is looking at its recruitment processes to actively seek out more diverse candidates. This is important work that, when actualized, will benefit all students and the broader community, and I'm happy to see it. Please keep going. The value of anti-racist DEI work cannot be overstated, especially in light of the egregious acts that took place at our nation's capital yesterday. As educators and parents who are raising the next generation, let's renew our commitment together to teach empathy and celebrate diversity in people and ideas, shedding any sense of entitlement and supremacy that may exist. This is what will light the path forward. For the good work you are doing in CSD, I would like to ask you to showcase it more often, perhaps a monthly DEI agenda item to report out how you are making progress in achieving your worthy goals. We are in this together, and you have many community supporters in this regard. Thank you, and have a good night. And that is all the additional comments, Dr. Ruskin.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. And again, thank you to our public for always sharing their thoughts and their feedback. And we always love to hear your ideas. And we always look forward to when we can implement some of those ideas that, maybe we just haven't thought of, or just creativeness. So we appreciate you. And we will now move on to the superintendent's report by Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. I am excited about our return to school this week. Just to reinforce, Mrs. Hood asked the question earlier that was going to be part of my superintendent's report, and that I've had several conversations with the Oakland County Health Division, and they indicate that they have received 5,850 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. They anticipate that they will begin to receive many more doses in the coming weeks. They opened an appointment schedule last night that included the opportunity for those who work in schools to be vaccinated, and those appointments were quickly filled. And I underspoke moments ago, there are actually over 18,000 school personnel in Oakland County. I've asked about having a specific vaccination site for our staff and was told that at this time that would not be possible. But we will continue to try and find ways to protect our staff, and we will continue that effort to ensure safety in our district. I would like to highlight that our girls swim and dive team and our girls volleyball team continue their fall sports tournament runs. The girls swim and dive state meet is January 15th and 16th, and the girls volleyball quarterfinal are Tuesday, January 12th. At this time, there are very limited or no fans allowed at these events. And so we will report back to the board how our girls teams do at our next board meeting. And I would like to welcome everyone back, and I look forward to a great end to this first semester, which ends January 22nd, and a great start to second semester, which starts on January 25th. And that's my report this evening, Dr. Ruskin.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. And I love hearing about, maybe we can watch on our TV network, at least the volleyball. I don't know if they do that in the pool, but Mr. Mena could let us know about that. So next we have our administrative reports, and I will begin with Dr. Kinzer. You are on mute.
Dr. Kinzer.
Sorry.
Perfect.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. I'd like to first wish everyone a Happy New Year. Second, as it is School Board Recognition Month, I'd like to thank all of our school board members for your hard work, dedication, and wisdom since the beginning of the school year. Really appreciate your leadership. Also want to let you know that in December, the Business Office and Human Resources Department combined to complete a pretty significant project. This is the Michigan Department of Treasury Teacher and School Support COVID-19 grants, the hazard pay grants that I'm sure you all read extensively about. It was a pretty major undertaking to apply the criteria and identify all of our eligible employees. We submitted that work in December, and those people, the vast majority of employees in our district will receive those grants in February. And the state of Michigan just announced that they are moving into phase 2 of that program. They've allocated some additional funding for some categories of employees who were not eligible the first time. I think what happened was they recognized when districts submitted that there were some exceptions that they didn't intend for. So they're attempting to remedy that with the second phase of this grant program. We don't have detailed information yet as to how that's going to work, but we'll be looking for guidance and following through so that we can make sure that all of our eligible employees receive these grants. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzer. And next we have Mr. McIntyre. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. I too want to wish everybody a welcome back and a happy new year. I'm excited about having a successful second half to the new year, to the school year, both academically and financially. And I also want to thank my superintendent and the board for your consideration of the Plant Moran auditing contract. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Dr. Weber.
Hey, good evening. I have a couple things I'd like to share. First, framing this in the notion of a person that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and that is Elie Wiesel. He survived Auschwitz and is most famous for writing Night, and he was winner of the Nobel Prize for Peace in 1986. A couple of his quotes that really stood out to me and are germane to our efforts of our kids and our staff. The first one, when a person doesn't have gratitude, something is missing in his or her humanity. A person can almost be defined by his or her attitude toward gratitude. And again, this is a man who survived Auschwitz. And what I'd like to do right now is share an initiative that came out of the incubator class. So I know President Ruskin, I believe Ms. Hood, you were there for the pitches. So you're going to recognize this. Can you see the number 29.6?
Yes.
Okay. So our incubator class at Novi High School, this year, a number of students came up with different ideas to pitch, different ideas that would be of service to the community. And this particular one is launched today. And I'll go ahead and read, I know Dr. Matthews, you've sent this out via Twitter, but this is for Ms. Adva Ringel. Our Novi High School incubator students are about ready to beta test their amazing new tutoring service called Leverage, pairing elementary English language learners with high school students who speak the same language. Parents can sign up here, and there's a link. But this is just part of the pitch, and I thought this would be nice to give some love and gratitude to the students who put their energy into this, and also to Ms. Ringel, who's been pivotal in helping them. So 29.6%, that is the percentage of Novi elementary schoolers who are in our ESL program. The problem with virtual learning is they cannot read lips, less one-on-one communication, and less individual help. So Leverage was created in 2020. Great things did happen in 2020. Don't let the history books tell you that some good didn't come out of it. And Leverage is the name of their group. And their proposal is simply to get a bunch of high schoolers to help out elementary schoolers with their homework, matching ESL elementary schoolers with high school volunteers that speak their native language in order to encourage English comprehension. So dual language learning, what that means, the teacher speaks English to the student, but also infuses it with the student's native language so they can connect the concept with something they already know. And that's a quote from Miss Ringel. So the program model is students and parents and high school volunteers, and they're brought together by the Leverage team. WIDA, which is a screener that we use in our district for students who are English language learners. A score of 1 to 2.9 is a low reading and English comprehension level, and they benefit from more dual language learning. So that's the group that will be served. Here's a bit of a demographic bar on this. I think this is fascinating, I'm sure, for the school board to see as well. Japanese, Telugu, Tamil, and Korean, where those languages are most prevalent in what schools. So demand and logistics and the statistics. So they're gonna need 46 volunteers. This is not gonna shock any of you. I said it's a beta. They already have 82 high school, Novi high school students who have raised their hand to say, I wanna do this. They needed 46. They have 82. I love our kids. So there's also gonna be a book activity. The kids are actually going to be published authors, and the book will be written by all of the ESL students. Each student will contribute to a short story with the help of their tutors. And in the end of the book will be published through a local publisher or our community school district. So this piece of it, this is part of their presentation, so not as germane to it. The students put this presentation together. Again, we have 82 high school students who have already signed up for this. To me, this is the power of community public education. What happens when you think creatively and open an open channel experience like the incubator for some of our Novi seniors to choose their own path, because guess what? Most of the time our students choose paths that absolutely exceed any expectations that I think the majority of adults have. So thank you so much to the 3 students there and to Ms. Ringel for that. Also, another quote from Eli Wiesel that I think is especially important today. I swore never to be silent whenever and wherever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must always take sides. Today, our teachers had to answer a lot of questions from our students. And I would simply like to say to those teachers, thank you. Thank you for not standing idly by. Thank you for engaging with our students who are bright, curious, and deserve to have conversations about things that also interest them. I would like to thank the school board during this appreciation month. I know that you guys don't get the big checks for this past 10 months. The fact that Paul and Danielle and Tom, you guys decided to go at it again, even in the midst of a pandemic, says a lot about you. I'm not sure what, but it says a lot about you because it's a heck of a job. And you're put in positions that can be exceptionally difficult and stressful. But please know how much the community appreciates your commitment, each of you, to our kids. And that's it. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Dr. Weber, and thank you for sharing what's going on in our schools. If you can have Sheila send kind of that presentation out to the board, that would be great. I haven't seen the link, but we can certainly be a resource if parents ask that we could share with community members for their kiddos.
Thank you, President Ruskin. And again, Dr. Matthews, I know if you go to his Twitter handle, you'll see that he tweeted that out tonight, and the actual link where parents can sign up is on there. So perhaps you guys could take a look at your phones and be ambassadors for us. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the opportunity for board communication. If any board members have anything they would like to share regarding school district business or anything else, please wave at me. Okay. Mr. Cook,
Actually,
I was going to say we have a quiet one.
I have a question. You know, we've kind of stayed out of the schools because of the social distancing and stuff. And I know we're not allowed to meet in person until at least after the 15th. Is there sometime after the 15th maybe that we could start maybe getting into the schools and at least roaming the halls, talking to the principals and see what's going on?
That is a good question. And we will follow up and look at the orders that were given by the governor that are still in effect, because originally one of the orders was that there was no visitors in school, but we will check to see if that is still in effect. And if it's not, I know that our principals would certainly welcome conversations with you. It may not be business as usual in the sense of kind of popping into classrooms and those kinds of things, but certainly I think that having some conversations with principals would be good. As in the past, each of you had been assigned a school that kind of connect with over the course of a semester, and so we might be able to get back to that during this second semester of the school year.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. If we can get an assignment with the hopes that, you know, someday during the second semester, things will be a little bit brighter and more in person. Any other comments or questions for board communication? Okay. Seeing none, just wish everybody a happy new year. I look forward to the day that we can all be in person again. Hopefully it's not in such a far future. We haven't sat at this board table together but a couple times in the last 10 months. So I know that we will look forward to being together and the camaraderie, just as the students will be with their teachers. That being said, if I can get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mrs. Hood, you'll second. I see you raised your hand. Okay, recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mrs. Hood. Mr. Mena, if you can give us a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
and Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you next Thursday. Have a good night.
Thank you.